Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of your Pac-12 basketball preview, along with the former Stanford point guard, Drew Schiller. Roxy Bernstein with you. We'll take you around the league and get you set up for another big weekend of Pac-12 action. We'll start with last week, and Pac-12 Player of the Week for the Washington State Cougars, Drew. Faisal Aiden, even though he didn't start either of the games as the Cougars swept the Bay Area teams as they went through the Palouse, Faisal Aiden a combined 57 points on just 29 shots, and he is your Pac-12 Player of the Week.
33 points against Stanford on Thursday night. He was 13 for 13 from the free throw line, and then 24 points against Cal on Saturday. And Washington State was definitely the surprise story of the Pac-12 last weekend, in large part because Faisal Aiden was so awesome, but there were other guys on Washington State who stepped up as well. It wasn't just the Faisal Aiden show. So we'll see if Washington State can now go on the road and emulate the success that they had at home.
And with the two wins, they put themselves right back in the Pac-12 race. There's a logjam right near the top. Cal and Oregon tied for first place as we take a look at the Pac-12 standings, with Cal and Oregon both at 6-2. Then you have Colorado and Washington nipping at the heels. Those teams are 5-2. And then, with 3 losses, you have Stanford, Arizona also sitting right there at 4-3. So there's a logjam right near the top of this Pac-12. So there you have the standings in the Pac-12 conference heading into action this week. And one trend that we've noticed, the home teams have been dominant so far in this league. Last weekend, the home teams won 10 of the 12 games. And for the season, the home clubs in conference play have won 75% of the conference games. Why do you think we're seeing such a dominant home floor this year in the Pac-12?
Well, I think it's a trend you're seeing really all over college basketball. It's very difficult for kids that are 18 to 22 to go on the road and get wins. At home, you're much more comfortable. You kind of have a routine. And when you go on the road, you're facing these teams in these difficult environments where the crowds are right on you. And I really think that it's going to be the team who can go on the road and steal a couple wins in this conference that's going to end up winning the conference at the end of the season. And when you look at Oregon right now at 6-2, 3 of those wins are on the road. They beat Washington State, and then they went to the Arizona schools and swept them. So it's not a coincidence right now that you see Oregon atop the conference with Cal, who's second with 2 road wins.
And also Arizona has a couple of road victories also. They're the only multiple road win teams so far in the Pac-12 conference. Let's shift our focus to the games for this week, and they start Thursday night in a game at McHale Center in Tucson, Arizona. The hot Washington State Cougars take on the Wildcats. 8:30 Mountain Time, 7:30 Pacific, national broadcast on FSN.
Well, as I had mentioned before, although Washington State swept the Bay Area schools and Faisal Aiden was the Player of the Week, Brock Moden was one of the top scorers in this conference. He had 16 points against Stanford, 15 points against Cal. Abe Lodwick off the bench knocked down 4 big 3-pointers against Cal, so it's really a team effort for them. But they're going to be going on the road to Tucson, Arizona right now, the best defensive team in the league in terms of scoring against them. So it's always a difficult place to go steal a win at Arizona. We saw Oregon do it. Can Washington State do it?
Also coming up on Thursday, a game that you can see on Root Sports Northwest and Fox Sports Arizona. 6:30 Mountain Time, 5:30 Pacific tip. The Washington Huskies and the Arizona State Sun Devils from Tempe, Arizona. Coming up at 7:30 Pacific Time from Los Angeles is UCLA host Utah, a game that can be seen on Prime Ticket in Southern California. And then on USCTrojans.com, also at 7:30, Colorado takes on USC at the Galen Center. Now let's shift our focus to the Saturday games. They begin in Los Angeles, 1 o'clock start. UCLA hosting Colorado, a pivotal conference matchup.
Well, it really is. Colorado, who's 5-0 at home in conference play, 0-2 on the road. We'll see if they can win away from Boulder. UCLA coming off a weekend where they were swept up in Oregon. They had won 3 in a row. They were 3-2, but then you go on the road and you fall back to 3-4. So that's a huge game for both teams. Colorado got Carlin Brown going again against Arizona, which was huge because he had struggled for 3 games in a row, but he had 19 points in their big win over Arizona.
Coming up at 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 4 o'clock Pacific on ESPN, the Washington Huskies, the Arizona Wildcats from McHale Center in Tucson, a national audience, and a real big matchup between these two teams.
Well, Washington, after a very tough, disappointing loss to Cal last Thursday night, was able to salvage their home split and beat Stanford on Saturday. For Arizona, it was the opposite. They won their first game against Utah and then lost a really close one at Colorado. The problem for Arizona has really been the ability to score. They've defended at a very high level, but right now they are struggling to find a couple different scores. Jesse Perry leading them. He had 20 points and 10 rebounds against Colorado. But we'll see if Washington can go on the road and kind of get a big win in Tucson, because Washington still has hopes of winning this conference.
Again, that game tips 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 4 o'clock Pacific on ESPN, Washington at Arizona. Also coming up on Saturday, they'll start at 3 o'clock Mountain Time, 2 o'clock Pacific on Root Sports Northwest and Fox Sports Arizona, Washington State at Arizona State. Then late Saturday night, 8 o'clock tip from the Galen Center in LA on Prime Ticket, Utah is at USC. And then Sunday becomes rivalry day in the Pac-12 again, a couple of historic rivalries. First, the Civil War Part 1 from Matthew Knight Arena in Eugene as Oregon State at Oregon. The Beavers coming off a home sweep of the LA schools, and the Oregon Ducks tied for first place. This is a real intriguing matchup.
And Oregon also got a sweep of the LA schools too. Craig Robinson of Oregon State said entering the week against UCLA and USC that it was the most important weekend during his tenure at Oregon State, and the team really responded and they were able to sweep those schools because they were 1-5 entering that weekend. They really needed to get both of those wins, and Oregon with their sweep, they're now 6-2 and atop the Pac-12, tied for first place with Cal, and it's really balanced for both teams. Oregon on Thursday night was able to get 20 points from Garrett Sim. On Saturday it was E.J. Singler, who had a career-high 26 points. And for Oregon State, although Jared Cunningham is their leading scorer, he's leading the conference in scoring, they really have a bunch of other guys. Devin Collier had a big game, Ahmad Starks obviously, so Oregon State, very balanced attack, same as Oregon, very exciting game.
Well, it's Oregon State, Oregon from Eugene, 3:30 tip on FSN. Then coming up at 5:30 on FSN, the other team that's tied for first place with the Oregon Ducks, the Cal Golden Bears, host Stanford in the big game Part 1 from Haas Pavilion. Again, a 5:30 tip on FSN. As we talked about home dominance in the conference so far, here's a team that maybe has been the most dominant in the league. Cal is 13-0 at home this season. They've won 16 straight in Berkeley, dating back to last season. And since Mike Montgomery became the head coach of the Cal Bears, he has not lost to Stanford on his home floor.
Stanford has not won at Haas Pavilion since 2008, but it was really important for Cal to go on the road last week and salvage that split. Beating Washington on Thursday night was huge, and they fell to Washington State on Saturday. Stanford, however, was not able to go on the road and get that split. Stanford was tied for first entering last week, but then you get swept on the road, and all of a sudden you're 5-3 and in 5th place. The problem for Stanford has been defense. Through the first 14 games, the Cardinal was allowing just 56 points per game. However, in their last 6, 78 points per game. Washington State in the second half shot 73% against Stanford. Washington shot 69% against Stanford in the second half. So I know Coach Dawkins, he wants to get back to defense, but it's going to be very difficult to defend a Cal team with Justin Cobbs and Jorge Gutierrez, Alan Crabb, Harper Camp. I mean, they're one of the most potent offenses, not only in the conference, but really in the country.
And Stanford's depth could play into play as Stanford, one of the deeper teams you'll see in the Pac-12 Conference. Again, Stanford-Cal from Haas Pavilion, 5:30 FSN on Sunday. That'll wrap it up for this edition of your Pac-12 basketball preview. We'll see you here next week. So for Drew Schiller, Roxy Bernstein, enjoy your weekend of Pac-12 hoops.